me mateys, shiver me timber. No, I can't do it. Sorry. Yeah, pirate episode. Not gonna do the pirate voice. Not gonna do it. Welcome aboard, my friends, for another episode of Tomb of Annihilation, but better. Today we're talking about what I did to the Jahaka Bay pirates. So every good story has pirates in it, and this is a good story, hence pirates. Most parties will hear about these pirates in Port Nyanzaru. They will talk to Zendar. I'm sure they'll probably get other information about the pirates, that they're out and they're scourging the seas, as it were. Also, if your players have done the Fort Beluarian quest, they'll know that the captain of Fort Beluarian is actually in league with the pirates. The Flaming Fist, which is a mercenary outfit from Baldur's Gate, is trying to vie for power, as all of the city-states are vying for power in Chult. So their method is they're trying to control the pirates. The pirates seem to be attacking all ships but Baldur's Gate flag ships. So there's a thing there. So there's a little connection there. You know, the captain is getting a cut, and so there's intrigue there. You find out about pirates. Yeah, there's just tons of ways to put pirates in your campaign. There are 3 pirate ships. There's the Dragon Fang, the Emerald Eye, and the Sturge. So those are the 3 pirate ships. They actually have 3 pretty interesting captains and crew. There's great information in the book about the captain and the crew. You've been offered a huge reward if you're to bring the ships back, bring the captain back. You get a reward. So there's money involved as well as high seas adventures. I would recommend that you look up online for different kind of maritime warfare and combat encounters. Kind of get a feel for, how things work, how different armaments of ships work, speeds, and how you find all that kind of stuff out, so that you'll probably meet these guys on the high seas, at least one of the ships, and you just want to make sure you've got good rules in place. I just searched up maritime encounters and found some materials that had ship stat blocks and how you figure wind direction and all that kind of stuff, and different ballistas and catapults and cannons and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're prepared, because they'll want to have a little bit of fun with the pirates on the high seas. So what today we're talking about, though, is Jahaka Bay itself, the Jahaka Anchorage. So it's 2 or 3 miles in from the coast. There's kind of a haze that is always over it, so it's kind of hard to see through. Makes it a perfect cove. At the very back of it, there's a cave the pirates are using as a place to anchor their boats and as their base of operations. That all in itself is great. There's always one ship in the cove being unloaded and refitted for travel. There's one anchored in the harbor just outside it, and the third one is always out battling, always out pirating. The buildings in the anchorage are all built from scrap wood and parts of old ships and barrels and ropes and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a real kind of ramshackle kind of life that they've built for themselves in this cave. The adventures to be had as written are just fine. I mean, it's a pirate cove. There's a lot of combat. There's different ways you could sneak in. Different captains do different things, and there's kind of some strategy in there. So I'm not saying that the way it's written is not good, but somehow in my crazy DM brain, I came up with this pretty crazy thing I'm going to share with you today. Like, it's just wild, and I think that's why I liked it so much. Is it starts out as just a normal, pirate encounter and turns into something really, really crazy. So that's the little excursion that I'm taking you on today. What I will give a little bit of a preview. I am planning on doing a series of recap videos from the campaign that I ran. I really enjoyed those when I would listen to them on the other podcasts or the other YouTube channels that I found. It's just great to hear how it practically worked, right, in the actual game setting. So those recaps were some of my favorite things I listened to, because you can kind of see and you can get a feel for what players' minds are going to go to and how they solve different problems, and then you can see if that's how if you want to change any bit of your account or whatever. So I am looking to do a series on that in the next, I don't know, in the next little while. I'm trying to figure out exactly the format I want to take. Anyway, the reason I brought that up is our first session in Jahaka Bay was just insane. Was just crazy. Like spells that I'd never even thought of ever using, my players used. And let's just say there was a lot of animated water. There was shark attacks. There were people being trapped on a ship and boring their way through it to try to escape. I mean, just nutty things. So I'm excited to get to that point where I can start doing these recaps of our campaign and show you how all the things that I'm sharing with you worked, and then just let you listen to an amazing campaign and see how you want to work it into yours. Jahaka Anchorage, like I said, great little encounter. It talks about they're up in the only really thing I changed about Jahaka Bay is the little, I think they call it the cage. It's kind of inside up above the water on the inside of the cave. I think it's supposed to be a prison or like a stockade or a brig, I guess. I made that a kind of a sniper nest to harass players as they were going through, and to kind of give a little bit more of a challenge, because there's really no way to get up to it. Having a sniper shooting at you from up there poses some pretty significant challenges. That's the only thing I really changed, apart from the stronghold area, the cage where they keep all of their loot. There was a cool dynamic in the book that if you put on an eye patch and walked into the storage area where all the treasure is supposed to be, then the traps wouldn't spring. There's a bunch of flying swords, I think, that come off the wall and come after you if you don't do the eye patch thing. So I kind of used a little bit of that. So I really wanted to make something crazy and make. I love when there's huge hidden things in mundane areas. Like life has gone on. People have forgotten about these old ancient ruins or whatever, and actually built over the top of them, and forgotten that they were even there. And then you find them, and adventure happens. Once they clear out the pirate den, and they walk into this thing. So someone at some point, a player will observe pirates going into this locked place. It's a cage, right? So you can see them walk in. They put the eye patch on. They're holding their treasure. And then they walk to the back, and a stone door that looks just like the side of the mountain opens up. And then they enter, and then it closes. And if they watch long enough, eventually the pirates come out, or they have no more loot. They take their eye patch off and they walk out. So that's the first little puzzle they got to figure out is, first of all, where's a treasure? These pirates have been pillaging ocean-going vessels for years. Where's all the gold? It must be hidden in this place. So the players have to figure out the first little riddle, which is wear the eye patch and then offer treasure. Like you have to have treasure to walk up to this place, and then it opens. So there's a lot of back and forth and trying to figure all that out. But once they figure it out, then they get all their treasure and put an eye patch on, they walk in. So what they enter is an immaculately carved stone hallway. It kind of angles down, it's more of a ramp. They get down, and a big stone door goes up, and they walk into this room, and it's just immense. It's this really huge stone rectangular room. There are torches glowing constantly, magical torches. At the far end, there's a 3-step dais, and sitting on the top of that is a sphinx. So I went with the gynosphinx, which is the female version of the sphinx. She's sitting there, her wings are curled back or folded back. On the back wall, there are 6 statues, 6 like miniature minotaur statues standing there. And in the 2 alcoves there are 2 minotaur. Everywhere in the room there is a maze motif. So at this point my players already know this, but if they see these mazes, they know this is an Ubtao shrine or some sort of building devoted to Ubtao. As they walk in with all of their riches in their hands, the Sphinx says to them, thank you for bringing your offering to the mighty Ubtao. Place it on the altar and be blessed. And they're all kind of confused a little bit about that because they didn't really come to make an offering. As they go up to it, if they go up to the altar, they realize that it's an altar, but there's no top to it, and it's a shaft inside of it that goes down into the darkness. If they dump money in there, they can hear it fall. It doesn't fall forever. They can hear it hitting the bottom after 2 or 3 seconds. I think it's 60 or 80 feet down. So they can hear it tinkling on the ground down there, making a racket. And as they do that, the Sphinx allows them to leave if they want. The door opens up behind them and thank you for offering. Please return with your worthy offer. So most players aren't going to want to dump all their gold down this hole. So eventually they're going to tick this thing off. And if you do not obey, if you do not show the proper fealty to Ubtao and give your offering, then the Minotaurs strike. They come. The little statues along the wall are basically wands of magic missiles. So they're just shooting magic missiles out at the party wherever they're at, which is scary because they always hit. I mean, they don't do a lot of damage, but they'll hit you no matter what. And the Sphinx gets into it. She waits a little bit. She doesn't jump right into it, but the fray begins. So they're having to deal with these things. Minotaur are a cool. They're a cool enemy. They're really not all that strong. I mean, they've got a decent amount of hit points, but they only have one attack. What they do have is their charge. So if they can get ahead of speed going, they can bash you with their horns and gore you, do damage there, and then you have to do a Constitution save, I think it's a Strength save, and if not, then you're thrown back 10 feet and prone. And at which point, if there are 2 Minotaurs, then the other one can come over and just hack at you at advantage. So there was a lot of fun trying to get out of their line of travel so they didn't come and charge in on them. Magic missiles flying everywhere. The Sphinx coming in. Now, I built the Sphinx. A Sphinx has legendary actions, which are the only way that a single monster could ever hope to defeat a party, is have these extra actions that they get during the initiative order. I'll put up on the screen here the actions that I put in. One of them that's kind of fun is you can shift the flow of time and make everybody re-roll their initiative. It doesn't really do a lot other than it's just a mechanic that doesn't happen very often, so the players are a little bit off balance. And the Sphinx can keep theirs. If they had a high one, they'll just keep theirs and make everybody else roll. There was a fun one where if you fail a Constitution save, then you age 1d12 or 1d20 years, either younger or older. None of my party they never failed that, so that never happened to them. They can completely shift the flow of time, like it could be 10 years in the future, 10 years in the past, all that kind of stuff that messes with you. And then the last one was the most important to the way that I built this, is that they can actually shift players and themselves completely into another plane of existence, which is what happens. So after the fight starts going for a while, usually after the Minotaurs are killed and people start going after the Sphinx, she shifts them all to another plane of existence. And I built this as kind of like the astral plane, so it's very much an open, kind of purple tinged just gaseous, clouds and, emptiness, really, really emptiness. This is really nerdy, but you're watching a D&D podcast. I think you're probably going to, give me some slack on the nerdiness. But if you remember in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, one of the greatest movies of all time, at the end when they're in that big nebula, that's the way I envision this, is just expansive kind of purple clouds or whatever. Anyway, so they show up on 10 by 10 platforms that are floating in space. And they're roughly 15 feet apart, and they're kind of randomly spaced. And I rolled to put the players on which ones they were. So, the furthest one back, at the start of the back row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just roll a dice. So they randomly come onto these tiles. And what I'd used is, I'm sure you've got games, board games or any kind of games. Settlers of Catan is one that we've got. So I think I used those tiles and just arranged them out so that they could, I didn't want to have to draw all the tiles and worry about all that kind of stuff. They actually kind of liked the fact that there were real tiles that they could move their guys across and stuff. Make sure you understand all the rules of running and jumping and distances and checks and all that kind of stuff, because they're going to be jumping from place to place to get around to do their business in this world. So they're on these floating platforms. There's 2 Minotaur and there's the Sphinx at the end again, jumping around, trying to get to where they need to get and do combat. That goes for a while. They usually knock the Minotaurs down first because they're the ones that are kind of actively coming at the players. The Sphinx kind of sits back until there's a really good chance, and then she'll come over. She can fly, so she can get anywhere she wants pretty quickly. So after she starts taking some damage, if she gets decently halfway down or whatever, then everything shifts back again back to the original room, and she goes invisible. I kind of kept it for a couple beats just to let them wonder if she'd escaped, because there's a lot of times when you're fighting big bosses like this and you get them down quite a lot and then they just, they flee. So they were kind of looking at each other and trying to decide what they were going to do. And then, bang, she starts attacking them. She has greater invisibility. Claws and different spells. Look at her spell book. The spells she has are very flavorful. There's things that help her understand and have legendary lore and all this kind of stuff, which a Sphinx would have. But you might want to throw in a lightning bolt or some other kind of offensive spell that makes it a little more interesting as she's attacking. The instant cure for invisibility is Fairy Fire, and my players had it. Fairy Fire got her down. It's really, like I said, it's really an easy fight when it's one creature against your party. So as she's taken down, she falls to the ground, and this whole time, this is an important part I totally forgot. So the whole time she has this crown on, and it's got a Ubtao symbol on the front of it. And it's almost grown in to her flesh of her head, and it's emanating this nasty green light. Like it's just, the light almost looks like fumes coming off. And her eyes aren't quite right, and so it's obviously affecting her somehow, and it's just grown into her. And so when she's 0 hit points, she falls down, the crown comes off, rolls across the ground, and she transforms back into a Cholton woman dressed in very ragged, like priestly garments, like she was some kind of shaman, some kind of priestess or something like that. But she's super old, like, 300 years old or whatever, just shriveled up, and she basically says something like, Ubtao, where are you? You've abandoned me. I failed you, and then she's dead, and that crown rolls off. Well, the second the crown rolls off, the whole place just starts shaking, just like huge earthquake. Pieces of rubble are falling down. It's all heck's breaking loose, and the players are freaking out and looking all over the place, and they start feeling. It's almost like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the spirits are coming around. They don't see them, but they can feel things going past, and they're getting smacked with force damage, and just this dread is just going on, and it all seems to be emanating from this crown. The crown seeks an owner. Like the crown must have an owner. And so somebody in the party is going to have to take that responsibility. Now, I'll be honest, one of the reasons I built this encounter was one of our party members, one of our players, was going to be leaving the country and wouldn't be able to play with us anymore. And I kind of told him that I was trying to build some kind of glorious sacrifice end to his character. I didn't tell him what it was. I didn't tell him how it worked, but he saw it. He recognized it when he saw it. So that character runs over and puts the crown on. All the tumult, earthquakes, everything stops, and he begins to transform into the new Sphinx. And in his Sphinx, and one way you can get around that, you don't have to have a party member that sacrificed himself. If there's an NPC that you brought along, or perhaps maybe there's prisoners there, or you can find some other little way to have somebody else take that curse instead of one of your player characters, because that's a pretty big sacrifice to give up your character and have to do a whole new one. Anyway, so that character that takes the crown becomes instantly aware of all of the history of what's going on, everything that's happened in this area with Ubtao. It just has all this history, and it's explained to him. And this is what I thought was so funny: is this was the location of the treasury of Ubtao, of the worshippers of Ubtao. And so people would bring their offerings here, and they would deposit them in the altar. But that was centuries and centuries ago. So this woman was a priestess, must have been in charge of this place, 300-400 years ago. Whatever happened, it caved in, and they didn't know about it. And then the pirates came, and so the pirates have been there for so long that the magic had flowed out into them, and subconsciously told them that they needed to bring riches to Ubtao. So these pirates are out during the day. They don't have any inkling of what they're doing. They're just getting plunder, right? They're going stealing treasure on the high seas, and then they bring it back. And they're like, "We're gonna go store it," and they store it in their place. And the second they cross that threshold, they just go straight and they dump it in the altar. And they turn back around and they come back, and to them, they're just like, we gotta go plunder some more, and they go out and they go trying to find gold and do all the things. They don't realize that they're not accumulating any gold, because it all keeps going into this back place. Because when they're not in there and they're not close to that door, they don't have any idea. They're just being pirates. So they think they feel like they're being successful because they keep bringing stuff in, but then they don't realize, they think they're storing it someplace, but in fact they're kind of entranced and they're offering the gold to Ubtao. I thought that was a fun way to make the pirates, think they're gaining all this booty, but they're actually donating it to Ubtao. So my players were upset about having to put gold down the altar in the first place, and then they thought, well, heck, if there's full of plunder down there, we better go check it out. Player characters can go down into the altar, and at this point, the Sphinx is still their friend in a way, because he's still kind of transforming into what he's going to be, the guardian. So he allows them to go down there. It takes a long time to get down there. So they get to the bottom, and it's a huge, immaculate vault, very carved and very intricate and things like that. But instead of being completely full of gold, which it should be, because the pirates have been feeding it forever, and then my players dumped some down there to see what would happen. The only thing that's down there is whatever the players had just thrown in. Everything else is gone. There's just nothing else in there. And they notice in one corner that there's kind of a burrow, like something had burrowed through the wall, and there's a tunnel that goes down. So of course they climb down there. So what they find at the bottom of this tunnel is a very large, very, very well-fed xorn. Yep, I used a xorn. So there's kind of a triple hilarity here to the circle of this wealth, because the pirates are chucking it into this thing because Ubtao, the Sphinx of Ubtao, wants it to have it there. So then they have all this stuff, and then there's this giant pile of gold that just keeps accumulating, and that has attracted a xorn who's chewed through and who is just gorging himself on the treasure and the gold that comes down into this thing. So years and years of plunder, and who knows how much gold was in there in the first place from, you know, the worshippers of the Ubtao, that this xorn has just come and eaten all of it. There's a big fight, because there's always a big fight, and they do recover some of the very recently eaten plunder, not a ton, but they do get some. But I just thought that was hilarious that Ubtao's tricking the pirates into giving him the money. The pirates are giving him the money, and then the xorn is ruining it for everyone by just eating it all. So I thought that was great. So the other thing that the Sphinx can do, and the Sphinx would want to do, because it's still sort of their party member and their friend, to give them knowledge that will help them on their quest. So here, let me break out my little campaign book here. Remember all this stuff. So in my campaign, the Sphinx was very adamant about telling them about the trickster gods. Gave them a story a little bit about the trickster gods, that they'd come in and they'd kind of replaced Ubtao, and they were kind of, you know, fake, but people had to believe in something. But then some other entity arrived, some other patron to them, that was forcing them to do things, and forcing the people of Omu to build the Tomb of Annihilation. And then the trickster gods, they wanted to rebel against this new patron, and then the patron had them all killed. So we know that patron is Acererack, and even the Sphinx is chilled by the fact that there's an entity that's so strong that it can kill all these gods and enshrine their spirits in the tomb. And then he also talked about the relationship between the trickster gods. So all the trickster gods have an enemy. So this one hates that one, and this one hates that one. The only one that doesn't have an enemy is Ankh, who is the ninth one, and who is all of the trickster gods have the alignments, the 9 alignments. So Ankh's right in the middle. She's completely neutral. That comes important when you get to the Tomb of the 9 Gods. There's a lot of that trickster god knowledge that you've got to know in order to make sense of some of the puzzles. And in fact, I've got some really cool ways for you to work the 9 gods in. So if you haven't seen the video, give it a shot. The Sphinx kind of tells them generally where Omu is, which is hugely important, and also reveals that there is a guide who knows how to get there at Port Nyanzaro, and that guide's name is Eku. So if they can find this guide, if she agrees, she'll take him down there, and they can get to the Forbidden City finally. So there may be other campaign things that you want to share with them, kind of a lore drop a little bit to let them understand some of those things, and just make the Sphinx to be powerful. I allowed them to have a short or a long rest here. Like the Sphinx and their companion, their former companion, know that soon they will become the Sphinx and will demand tribute. But at this point, he allows them to stay and get rested. And then he's like, get the heck out of here, because bad things are going to start. Well, not bad things, but he won't be able to be himself anymore. So that's how you change a simple little pirate encounter into something way more complicated and way more out there and really way more fun. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I think we have 30 subscribers now. So if you've subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. How cool is that? The more of us we get, the more YouTube's going to show it to people, and the more people are going to get in this little group and have a great time. So thank you so much. Like the video. Don't forget to like it, and watch it 8 or 9 dozen times. Nobody's stopping you. What are you gonna do? Set aside several hours on a Saturday and just go nuts. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Rock on.